Man, I'm so bummed I'm not at NAB. Sucks. Alright. Alright, welcome to TGE, the podcast. Today's episode is going to be about Reservoir Dogs and some other things we like to talk about on this podcast. Mainly we talk about editing and we get into the details, the weeds of a iconic scene and see if there's something to be discovered and go from there. With me is Tyler. How are you?
Good, Sven. How are you doing? Have you watched this Criterion channel?
No, I haven't. Is it up yet?
I think it's like coming out this month, and they're doing one movie. If you sign up early, you get to see like they're doing like a movie of the month or something like that. But so Filmstruck has been avenged. And speaking of avenged, we appreciate everyone who listens to the podcast. We appreciate you telling your friends. I don't know why that's vengeful. We appreciate the way that the word is spreading and it's growing. And go ahead and hit subscribe if you're new to it. I still want to hear from someone who has said, Siri, subscribe to this podcast on their iPhone, but you can also do that on Spotify. You can do that on Stitcher. Anywhere you listen to podcasts, you can subscribe to us, and we appreciate it, so thank you.
This podcast is recorded on a Monday. It's opening day for NAB, and what's really exciting is I got an email announcing that Resolve 16 came out, which usually doesn't get me really excited because it's not my favorite editing software. But one of the features, and I don't know if you've heard about this, but they now, they have still the editing portion in Resolve, but they have a new tab, and it's called Cut. And so they have a second editor that they implemented in there, and it's kind of wild. It's interesting. It looks a little like Final Cut 10, and then they have some of their own ideas. So it's not just one timeline you see up to 3 different timelines of the same edit. And so you have like a macro and a global view, and then like you can at the same time look at the details of a specific edit, and then even dig deeper and do some crazy trimming. So it looks really, really interesting. Could be a complete disaster, or could be something completely new.
Yeah, one or the other. I'm actually going back to linear.
Oh, really? Nice.
So yeah.
That's how they introduced it, actually. They're saying, we're introducing some of the concepts from linear editing and bringing them back to make it easier.
Now, we get excited every year about DaVinci, but then the sound is just never there, right? Did they fix the sound problems you had?
I don't know. I have to play with it, but they hadn't in 15. It has to do with the multicam and the multi-channels audio that you can't get back into. I'm always very impressed with all the features that they introduce, and then when I actually start using Resolve, I always feel like it's clunky. It's like there's not the editor thinking behind it. It's not smooth. It's not flowing ever. But maybe this is solving that problem. So I'm interested to see how that works out.
Well, cool. We look forward to hearing how it is in the next week or two.
Yeah, baby. Want to talk a little bit about Primer? I got an email from somebody.
Yeah, we did Primer last week. It was very, we needed a lot of feedback on it because it turned out neither of us had really watched the whole movie recently, but we did do the opening scene. But we both liked the movie. What's this email?
This email comes from Mael, and he writes, "Hey Sven, I enjoyed listening to your breakdown of the opening scene of Primer because it is also one of my most admired movies. Worth noting, however, especially from the point of view of editing, is that the film was actually shot on real celluloid film. You should check out the making of or the director's commentary that explains it all. And then I'd love to hear you guys discuss the film further with that knowledge, because they had such a small budget and film was so expensive. Shane meticulously planned every shot and essentially edited the film before shooting so that no film would be wasted. Only one take for most shots. I think they only left a few minutes on the cutting room floor. Cheers." So that is actually really... I made a mistake there. I thought it was shot on video, but it wasn't. I think I mistook it for Full Frontal, the Steven Soderbergh film that was shot on video. And
gotcha. Yeah, and I was surprised in the podcast. I feel like, so I remember being like, "Wow, that's the best anyone's ever made." Like the shittiest digital camera ever. Look.
Yeah, no, it does look good. I do remember listening to the director's commentary, and the one thing that I remember was that he was talking about the scene that he shot around a fountain, and for some reason, they got the exposure wrong, so there's a lot of grain on that shot, and that it always bothered him, but probably just him. But it does make a lot of sense. I mean, the film does look amazing, and so yeah, kudos to him. In terms of the editing, yeah, that's a tough one when you only have one take and you kind of need to do almost like paper cuts where you like map out the scene beforehand and what lines you're going to record in what angle. I've never gone to that extreme. I had shot a movie myself on 35 millimeter, and I had only like 2 or 3 takes per angle. But I always shot the entire scene, so I had coverage on everything. And yes, so
right.
my ratio wasn't 1-to-1; it was like 3-to-1 or something close.
And yet, I wish I could have edited Primer, because there's no editing job I like more than something that's so meticulous, although it does rob you creatively completely.
Yeah, it's tricky because you do 2 things, right? You rehearse and rehearse and rehearse, and then you just hope you get it right when you roll the camera. And you're running that risk of wearing out the actors, or if you don't rehearse enough, you want to keep it fresh, that you just don't get it because suddenly you discover something in the filming and you feel like you need to do it again. So it's very risky to do it that way. But at the same time, it's a constraint that probably makes you more creative. Your tools are really sharp because you need to get it done. The pressure's on.
Yeah. Well, it's always that concept, and kind of why people ask on the show, why are you talking about all this stuff that's not just the editing? And it's because everything goes into it. And this is a great example of how understanding editing lets you make a much improved film with limited resources. Now with digital, it's a little easier to get coverage if you're shooting something digitally, but I'm all for shooting on film and all for it. So it's always cool to see Robert Rodriguez's early films, or this one where filmmakers really don't have the luxury, and yet it ups the ante a lot to do it without coverage, although we never recommend it. And also, I really feel like, I know that feeling of listening to some people on a podcast that are just saying facts that are completely wrong. And we really, really, really appreciate receiving the information that we were way, 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 way off, like in a way that would infuriate me if I had that knowledge. So we need the community, so let us know when we are out on a limb talking nonsense.
Yeah, we're not really experts all the way. Like, we're not completely geeking out on it, and that's maybe the most dangerous way of talking about these movies. Either you know nothing or you know everything. That's better than knowing a little, right? There's a saying
right.
about that.
I mean, I stand by my analyses of the creative choices, but we don't always know the information. And sometimes people have inside knowledge about, this is pretty egregious, but sometimes people have inside knowledge that we don't, about what went on in the production that informs the decisions we're commenting on. And that's always the coolest to get feedback about.
Yeah, absolutely.
In my experience.
Absolutely. I think you're right with everything. I think the takeaways that we drew in that podcast are still, like, every time we do a podcast and I look at these scenes, and it's going to happen today again, it's already happened to me while I was preparing for this, is like, yes, I know something about this movie. I remember what it was like when I saw it the first time, but now I reflect on something very specific and I take something away that is so precious in terms of what I can now add to that film.
Right, and it's that age-old story you hear bandied about in film school of the professor analyzing for Kurosawa why he made the choices he did to shoot this amazing low-angle shot, and then Kurosawa saying, no, actually there was a billboard just to the left, so I had to, just crop it out. I don't know if that takes away from the meaning and the impact of our interpretation of the shot, but sometimes the mechanics of what went on behind the scene might be a little different, which is interesting too. Yeah. And also, how do you embrace those problems and build on it, which I think is a theme that we address here.
Which is why there are a lot of filmmakers who never explain what their films mean.
Oh, yeah.
or why they did
Right.
things. They just let it be what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And
then there's
leave it
Vince
up to the audience.
Gilligan's that really, pull back the curtains on so much, and you get to appreciate it, I feel like, that much more. I mean, some stuff he won't, but a lot of times going into the tooth and nails of the production, it's always amazing to hear, and it gives you more appreciation that there's no from episode to episode, no clue what's going to happen on Breaking Bad. It gives you more awe, I feel like.
Yeah. Well, Mael, thank you so much for sending out the email and getting it directly to me. And I hope you're still going to be a fan of the podcast. If not a fan, a listener. And we can still be friends.
If not a listener, a downloader. We'll take anything.
I was going to go through this list of, because Ross also contacted me and asked me a while back in a podcast, I don't know when, I talked about this infamous AFI list of films that we were required to watch, and I actually went through my closet and I found the list. But I think I'm going to save it for next podcast. Go through those movies, and I want to see, supposedly I've seen all of them. I don't remember many of them, but I want to see if Tyler remembers or knows these movies and can maybe give us a synopsis.
Nice. Yeah, I know that list has evolved a little bit, but I'm very curious to see how far I've gotten.
Sounds good. All right, so now we're ready to talk about Reservoir Dogs. I'm not a big Tarantino fanatic. I mean, I like watching Tarantino movies, but I never really get fully into it. How about you, Tyler?
I have an interesting relationship with Tarantino. I mean, obviously, especially with the early films, for me, that was a time, we talk about people like Robert Rodriguez and stuff like that show you the way in terms of like, oh, people can make movies. He was definitely the first time I realized people made movies. Prior to that, I would always think it would be fun to go on the adventures Marty McFly was on, not recognizing, that it's being filmed, that there's, multiple takes, that it's completely written, that it's staged. And it was really only with Tarantino's films just for that time in my life. And, because he was such a celebrated filmmaker with a distinct voice, you would start to see biographies and bookstores and stuff and pick it up and be like, oh, wait, a person makes a movie? So he was instrumental in me understanding that people made movies, which was very, very, very cool, with no concept of a director or anything like that. And kind of thinking, like, I remember someone telling me once, like, yeah, I heard he, like in high school, I heard he directed Natural Born Killers, and just thinking like, oh, that'd be cool to also direct a movie. Like, it was very clear he was the writer, and I was like, then what's the director do? You just kind of sit there on the set while it happens, like while this thing happens, and obviously he didn't direct Natural Born Killers, but it was kind of, that was my evolution with him. So it was very cool.
Right. Yeah, I didn't watch Reservoir Dogs before I watched Pulp Fiction. So that's when I noticed Tarantino was with Pulp Fiction, and then I went back. It's definitely cool. It's a lot of things where I'm like, initially was like, okay, there's a lot of scenes that are about nothing. But this opening scene, now that I've rewatched it, I think I have some thoughts why it is done the way it is and what the purpose is. It's going to be really cool. Before we get into it, how about I set it up? Reservoir Dogs is a 1992 American heist film written and directed by Quentin Tarantino. It's his feature-length debut. It stars Harvey Keitel, Tim Roth, Chris Penn, Steve Buscemi, Lawrence Tierney, Michael Madsen, Tarantino himself, and Edward Bunker as diamond thieves whose planned heist of a jewelry store goes terribly wrong. The film depicts the events before and after the heist, which is, I think, really cool that you don't actually see the heist. It incorporates many motifs that have become Tarantino's hallmarks: violent crime, pop culture references, profanity, and non-linear storytelling. The film is regarded as a classic of independent film and a cult film, and was named greatest independent film of all time by Empire. Although controversial for its depiction of violence and use of profanity, Reservoir Dogs was generally well received, with the cast being praised by many critics. It grossed $2.8 million on a $1.2 million budget. It was more successful in the UK, where it grossed £6.5 million. And it was the talk of the town at the Sundance Film Festival.
Yes, where it had a failed projection. The projection went blurry or something like that, and And Tarantino had, like, rightfully a complete mental meltdown during the debut of his film, just, having a huge projection failure. Which is fun, considering what a proponent of film projection he's been ever since.
Yeah. I was picked up by Miramax at Sundance. So,
yes, and also fun facts about Reservoir Dogs. It was made as a straight-to-video movie. I believe it's Live Entertainment. That's a straight-to-video company that bought it for that reason, but it was just so incredibly well done that they sold it for the theatrical release.
Yeah, and I think he originally intended to shoot this on a very low budget, $30,000, with just a couple of friends. And somehow the script got to Harvey Keitel, and he became a fan of it enough to push it further. He helped with the casting, put some money up for the casting in New York, I believe. And then they ended up raising $1.5 million to make the film.
Yeah, and it'll be fun to see the reveal of Steve Buscemi's character in this, because I think character reveal is a big part of the scenes that we're looking at. I know endless facts about Tarantino in these films, and we'll hold off. Maybe we'll get into it a little more, do another one when Once Upon a Time in Hollywood's coming out later this summer.
Okay.
But I will say that the actor Tarantino wrote the role of Mr. Pink for himself, and then when Buscemi auditioned, he realized, oh, shit, I have to give it to this guy. And that's a role he wrote for himself, and then, of course, created the role of Mr. Brown that he played.
So was Mr. Brown added after the fact, or was that another character already written and then he cast it himself?
I'm reasonably sure he added it after Buscemi came in and auditioned.
Got it.
Sam Jackson auditioned as well, didn't get the role, which he always resented Tarantino for, although obviously he's been in every movie since.
Yeah, and but interestingly enough, he still sort of gets the first line in the movie, Tarantino.
Oh, totally. That's the funniest part to me.
Yeah.
He's definitely putting his stamp down, and I think a lot of that helped build the legend.
Yeah.
So good for him.
That's some balls on your first film, though, with Harvey Keitel and the likes.
There's a lot of balls in this entire movie.
All right, so here we go. We're doing the opening scene. What we usually do is we watch it with you. If you have the option and you can sit down somewhere, watch it with us. We'll leave a link in the description of the podcast. And when we say 1, 2, 3, click, you can just watch along. If you can't and you're on a run or you're commuting, don't worry. We'll describe it to you. We'll go back and we analyze it in more detail. Anything else before we go?
I'll also point out that the reason we're doing this is because last week we were doing Primer, and Sven pointed out it reminded him of this scene, which I'm sure is, an homage to another film, given Tarantino's propensity to do so, which doesn't jump to mind, but it's cool to look at in terms of the way characters are introduced. And it's going to be cut in a very different way than Primer, so we're kind of comparing the two.
We are, and I've formed an opinion now whether it is an homage or not, but I won't reveal it right now. We'll have to wait. Okay, here we go. In 3, 2, 1, click. We start on some nice little yellow credits. What's nice about them is you can see that they're shaking, which is an indication that it's film. It's an optical.
Mm-hmm.
We hear Tarantino talk before we come up. There's a slow creeping dolly shot behind the backs of some suited guys.
Whoa. Time out, Green. They tell that fucking bullshit to the tourists.
Holy, who the fuck?
And they're talking about the origin story of Madonna's Like a Virgin.
Nice fella. That's what True Blue's about.
Yeah.
Granted, no argument about
Still
that.
don't
Drifting
quite
around
see
the table.
Tarantino talking. It's like over his shoulder.
I don't even follow that top to the pop shit, and even I've heard of True Blue.
Yeah, so I didn't say I ain't heard of it. What I asked is, how's it go? Excuse me for not being the world's biggest Madonna fan.
Personally, I can do without her. I used to like her early stuff.
Don't know who else we would start this scene with.
So now we're also intercutting between closer dolly shots on the faces, and the camera keeps moving and keeps panning. It's interesting to notice when we are on camera and off camera for some of these lines.
Coat I haven't worn in a cool's age. What's that name?
What the fuck was I talking about?
So True Blue was about a guy, sensitive girl that meets a nice guy, but Like a Virgin was a metaphor for big dicks.
Okay, let me tell you what Like a Virgin's about.
And I like the
all about
naturalism
this
of these
coup.
people just blocking the scene out with their shoulders. It's almost as if you're listening into this. Just a bunch of idiots. They're not discussing plot or anything, but you're really, in a way, learning a lot about character.
Yeah.
Whoa, baby. I mean,
and the most disposable guys doing all the talking, but you're just learning about it from the way they're talking.
Yeah.
It's
What I really
interesting kind of
like
engaging fly on the wall conversation, but then it takes the turn at the end where we realize, oh, what's going on?
Yeah.
They're about to commit a robbery.
His story that he's talking about, it ends on him on camera when he says like a virgin.
Hence, like a virgin.
Which I thought was really interesting, that most of the story was not on him, but on everybody else. But the button was on him. Okay,
right,
so then
and
we
it's
move
almost
on.
like a transition to go to that.
Yeah.
That thing being snatched, the book being snatched away.
Yeah, so at 2:22 now, we're done with the dolling shots, and now we pick up the sort of that B story of this conversation, which is that address book
Toby Wong, Toby Chung, fucking Charlie Chan.
that the older guy who's potentially like the boss
my
of this
left
game.
ear, and Toby the Jet, I don't know what, coming out of my right.
And that puts a nice conflict in this scene to carry throughout this kind of more natural interaction. We have this conflict thread of, is he giving him back the book?
Well, then I'm afraid I'm going to have to keep it.
Hey, Joe.
Right.
Want me to shoot this guy?
And it's kind of escalating. We're slowly realizing they have a little bit of these violent edges and stuff like that.
3:01, we're going back to dolly shots. So when there was a little conflict, it stopped moving.
Oh, yeah, man, it's fucking great, isn't it?
Now we're like talking about some other music.
Heartbeat, It's a Love Beat by Little Tony Frankel and the Frankel family. Man, I haven't heard that song.
At this point, like, this is like the third story where I'm like, why we're talking about this?
I hadn't heard that song since it was big. When it was big, I must have heard it a million
But I mean, what's really going on is we're getting to really know everybody. Like, who is, what is the character of each one of them? And that's a lot of people.
I know, motherfucker. I just heard it. That's what I'm talking about.
Okay, we'll stop moving.
The bill.
Boom up to him, and he's gonna pay.
I'll take care of the
And this is the introduction to the tipping part.
Should be about $1 a piece.
The new conflict.
And you, when I come back, I want my book.
Sorry, it's my book now.
Hey, I changed my mind.
Interesting enough,
Anecdotal.
Chris Penn here, he is the only one that wears blue, or like a different color.
All right, everybody cough up some green for the lady.
And now we're like in these close-ups, locked off shots.
You don't tip.
Well, there's a
No, I don't believe in
slight adjustment with
You don't believe in
the
tipping.
head moves.
You know what these chicks make? They make shit. Don't give me that. She don't make enough money. She can
But
quit.
this is really where I remember where I'm like, I'm actually really listening. Everything else, I'm kind of, it's just washing over me.
You don't ever tip.
But here,
I don't tip because
this is
society
the stuff
says
that I
have to.
remember.
All right, I mean, I'll tip if somebody really deserves a tip. If they really put forth
there's
the
a
effort, I'll give
conflict.
them something extra. But I mean, this tipping automatically.
Yeah, and it also,
it's
like,
for the birds.
it picks a topic that's very relevant
Just doing
to,
their job.
at least here in America, right? This whole tipping thing. It's an ongoing discussion.
What's special?
Is it?
I think so. And
I'd go over
I mean, this is a bold stance to not tip.
A long fucking time. She's only filled my cup 3 times. I mean, when I order coffee, I want it filled 6
even
times.
as a European, you have a take on this, right? Which is like,
I don't know.
this is wrong, you shouldn't have to tip so that they can make a living. The system is wrong.
Jesus Christ, I mean,
Right,
these
but
ladies
he's
aren't
not coming from a European point of view.
No, he's not.
You know, I used to work minimum
I don't
wage,
even
and
think
when I
Europe's
did,
mentioned in
I
this.
wasn't lucky enough to have a job. The society deemed it
Interesting,
work.
here's a
You don't care, they
like
can't
over-the-shoulder
find a place to
two-shot of Harvey, as opposed to all these singles that we had so far, single over-the-shoulder.
It's the world's smallest violin playing just for the waitresses.
You don't have any idea what you're talking about. These people bust
I
their
was
ass.
thinking about that the other day at Trader Joe's. They're so much more deserving of tips than any waiter I've ever
You don't
had.
need to tip them, do you? Well, why not? They're serving you food. But no, society says,
All
don't
right,
tip these guys.
I don't know, do you want to
Tip
keep
these guys.
going, or?
Bullshit.
We have
I think
enough.
we're good.
Yeah, so let's stop here.
So, Sven.
So, it did remind me a lot. Like, I feel like Primer starts off the same way. Like, you have that dolly shot, then you creep around, we have another dolly shot, and then it stops. And it did kind of, I feel like it's an homage, even though then it goes off on something else, which is like the high-angle shot that we discovered, and the shot through the open doors, that kind of stuff. But the whole opening was very much reminiscent of this scene. And
well, there's also collared shirts and ties and kind of having fairly nonsensical conversations while we're kind of learning other stuff subconsciously and winding cameras, the director holding court.
Yeah, for sure. And I remember actually a couple of years ago, Tarantino was at AFI for opening day. And there's a clip online on YouTube that I saw where he's talking to the students. And he was talking about the fact that people sort of said that he was stealing a lot of stuff in Reservoir Dogs, potentially some other movies. And he's like, yes, admittedly, I do that all the time. But it's not like what I'm doing is I'm taking something here, I'm taking something there, and I'm using it for my story. It's a completely fucking different movie, is what he said, right? But yes, that scene I took from that movie, and maybe this is what Shane was doing as well. He just took a little bit, and that's how he got into his film, and then he moved on, and then it became its own.
Yeah, it's a very different movie. They're not criminals. But also, things with, there's so many, like supposedly City on Fire is very similar to Reservoir Dogs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
But like the idea of naming the characters' colors is taken so directly from The Taking of Pelham. It's taken from The Taking of Pelham, 1, 2, 3, that it's like, wow. But so much more iconic in this one, which is kind of funny too. And you can see that in a lot of the, plays of Shakespeare and stuff. Like a lot of people are writing about the same subjects. And obviously, like the kings and queens and the histories and Merchant of Venice and stuff like that, but, just being crystallized in obviously a more memorable, iconic way. So there's kind of like this weird balance with that. But then also, I think at this point in Tarantino's career, we can say that he's contributing something.
Oh, yeah. It's a remix.
Sure. I would say it's even, it's obviously far, far, far more than that. But it's kind of funny how little details people can get hung up on. I think it's a little egregious in his case, and rightfully so. But, it's like the Facebook social network thing. If you invented Facebook, then you would have invented Facebook.
Right.
Right? Like, it wasn't the first platform, which I always thought was a great line.
Yep. In terms of the purpose of the scene, why it's, this is a gutsy scene to start off a movie. And in the wrong hands, could be a disaster, because you basically have a bunch of people sitting at a table talking about stuff that's like not related to anything what the movie is about, and it still works. What do you think is the purpose of this scene?
Well, it's interesting to me because a few things, like seeing it very early in discovering cinema and stuff. It's very notably stylized. Like you can feel from the very first shot, you can feel the director's hand because we have an unmotivated camera movement.
Yeah.
So you're aware that someone is doing this, and yet it's very cool, and it's also a little bit of a break from what you're used to in the mainstream, because there's a conversation being had about absolutely nothing. And that was such sort of a signature Tarantino thing at the time, how we're just really almost like a objective documentary, kind of just getting a real sense of who these people are, because they're not following the tropes of, what's the conflict, every line has meaning, every moment is revealing story. It's really just like, hey, look, here you are, you're in this world now, and you're getting to observe a conversation that people in this world, Tarantino's world, have. And I think it really stood out because of that. But it's also interesting to see how, he's not just randomly writing babble. The camera work shows that I'd never even thought about or noticed before until we started doing this, that during those things that are really just characters talking, you're learning character through just their interaction, it does have that kind of dollying camera work going on. And then when it becomes, boom, conflict story, we have things locked off. Keitel's coming in hot and heavy. It's really interesting. And how there's also multiple scenes. Obviously, it's a 9-minute bit, but there's like multiple scenes within it that are broken up. Right? He finishes telling the Madonna story. It ends with this little like Bob Fosse like bow almost from him. I know he's not bowing, but it kind of feels like that to me. And then we have I feel like an insert or the address book being snatched away, which works as a transition. We're moving into a new scene. It's just incredibly well executed, for something that just kind of has the illusion of being meandering.
Yeah.
It's not at all.
Yeah, I think the big challenge here is, and it's bigger than for most films, is that you have 8 characters to introduce. And you got to give a flavor for each one of them. Like, who's the guy that is intimidated? Who's the guy that just talks a lot? Who's the guy that is smart? Who's the guy that's like a little mischievous? All that stuff. And that's accomplished in this scene. Usually you have maybe 4 or 5 characters. If it's an ensemble, 8, that's a lot. And a lot of these characters will never kind of really have that opportunity again. So you need to really make your mark with them, with each one of them. And I think that's why that scene is the way it is. Why, like, maybe he did this instinctively, but I think the calculation behind it is, okay, I need these anecdotes so that everybody can play their character and see how they react to this situation. Some people are going to be into it, some people are going to not be into it, distracted, opposed to it, all that kind of stuff. And this way you can reveal each character, and then you can start your story.
Right, and additionally, it's found a way to not just be giving us information, but it's actually incredibly effectively drawing us in. Like, from that first moment with that shot, it's I want to know more. I want to know who's talking. I want to know who these people are. So it has a good job of doing that lean forward that Norm Holland would always talk about.
Can you define that? Lean forward? What does he mean?
No, I don't fucking know. It's the thing that makes you sit forward in your seat. Like, I want to know more. And hopefully every edit, ideally, every edit is doing that, just bringing you in more and more and more. And that has to be contributed on every level of the storytelling. And the last thing that I'll say about this scene is that everybody always wants to have those moments of just real life. And I know this isn't real life because they're, it's a very heightened version of who people are, but just people chilling out and conversing is where there's not some drive behind it is just so rare and hard to pull off. And yet it's done so well in this movie. And it's funny because, and we all know anytime that's been tried, the reason, as editors we know, as writers we know, directors because you're always cutting. It's like you're polishing that diamond and just pushing it and pressing it down more and more and more. And those are the easiest things to get rid of. So, the fact that they are they're like the antithesis of what you want to be doing in a story, they still somehow stand out as the most memorable dialogue and most memorable moments, even though they have nothing about what you're supposed to be doing according to the rules of drama. And it also never becomes boring. It's incredibly engaging to me, but it's funny that you watch it, the editing machine that Sven watches it, and the machine's active, like, we could lose this, because you know how wrong having those moments are, and yet it's ironic that they become so memorable and so iconic because it's just done so well. And it's weaved in, and it's important to remember that those stakes are introduced, and kind of stakes are planted that allow you to enjoy those things that stray from the stakes in the story more because they're presented.
Yeah. I actually have
and that's my bow.
Yeah, I probably would have said this is a very indulgent scene, but after watching it now, I think it's less indulgent than I would have thought. Despite the fact that I barely remembered anything from it other than the tipping thing, which is like, that's something that's going to stay with me forever. But if I had to cut anything, I think it starts off perfectly with the Madonna story. I think it's fine to have the sort of B story be about that address book. But then somewhere they veer off and talk about music one more time. And I don't understand that part, where for another 30 seconds they talk about something else. And I pulled up the script and I read it, and it's just like they just throw so many different artists and stuff there that I'm not familiar with before they then settle in on the tipping thing, and the camera literally settles in. So maybe it's intentionally, maybe this is strategic to just overwhelm us, confuse us, and then lets us be more focused on it. But I felt like maybe that middle part could have been cut.
Sure, but the thing I would add is maybe if Robert Altman directed it, we wouldn't even hear that dialogue. And I think there's a couple other factors too. One, the tipping thing has nothing to do with the story itself, right? So it's kind of like a nothing scene also, but you're learning that this guy's resilient, like whatever. Yeah. And then the last thing I'll add is I might be jaded too, because I didn't have these cultural references when I saw the film. Yeah. And I think now that I'm remembering, those bits you're talking about were the bits that were in the soundtrack that would play before the music started, and I had that CD and listened to it forever. So I could quote those things word for word, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they jumped out in the film. But that said, like you're saying, maybe they don't need to. That's not what they're there for.
Yeah. And what's also interesting is at the end of the tipping scene, Steve Buscemi is taking the stand, right? I'm not tipping. It's wrong. And then at the end, the boss says, come on, you got to tip. I paid for your breakfast. You better tip. He's like, all right, I'll do it. So it's kind of like a non-event. Nothing changed. He's still tipping, but it's completely introducing his character.
Yeah, and then we're going to learn who has the weight at the table and so forth and so on as it goes, which is all very interesting. And then there's another standoff at the end, which we won't reveal here. The last thing I'll say, because I have to edit this, is for that film at the beginning, I mean, the title sequence, a cool thing about that is that an insider tip you can get from the commentary is that it had that cool kind of slow-mo look, but what they actually did was they filmed it fast. They filmed it at like 14 frames a second and then played it back at 24 to get that cool kinetic look.
Oh, I see.
That it has.
Oh, that's good to know, because when I saw it, and I didn't remember the strobing effect, I was like, oh, so he never planned this to be slow-mo. He just shot it at regular speed and then slowed it down. And you're saying, no, this is intentionally shot at an even slower rate.
Yeah, faster rate.
Faster rate. Yeah, 14 frames.
So more frames a second.
Well, 14 frames is less.
We have backwards. Yeah, whatever.
Less frames a second.
Yeah.
Usually you would shoot this frames. At 120 or whatever. So that it's smooth.
Right. But not these guys.
No, this is not smooth at all.
We're also going to go to editor hell if we don't mention Sally Menke, his collaborator on all of his films, I think up to Django Unchained, who unfortunately passed away in this tragic accident. Incredibly talented and I mean, easily a huge part of a lot of the style and success of his films. And we're discussing this stuff really extensively here. It's not, again, I don't think he was shooting the way Shane Carruth was. I think he allowed discovery in the editing room. And that was just such a great collaboration. And you could tell he's someone who's like, no, more. And the edit, he would say, I think in that Final Cut documentary, is it called Final Cut? Whatever it's called. Someone will tell us. It was all about how, she would generally push him to make it tighter and tighter and tighter. And he's like, no. And then they kind of had that thing where they would find that balance in the middle. So that's a huge loss. And she will be missed.
Yeah. Letting it breathe is what he was always pushing for. And she was like cutting it down.
Right. And that's so fun to watch with you and see that. Because again, you're such an editor. You just automatically know, like, we don't need this. But then with that debate with him, be like, okay, maybe we do. So you kind of had the same interaction they had.
It's different times. I mean, that scene is 8 minutes long, and I don't think we would have missed that 30 to 60 seconds in the middle.
Whoa. You hear that, Quentin? You have your new editor, the man who will push back on you.
Yeah. Different times. Maybe back then was fine. Nowadays, I don't know.
Back then. All right. Well, if you enjoyed what you're hearing, if you have anything you'd like to contribute, there's a lot more detail and nuance we could go into about this film, but we are sparing you. We'll probably be talking about Tarantino more as Once a Time in Hollywood approaches this summer, so you can look forward to that. It's a cool comparison between this and Primer. We appreciate the feedback. If you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast. Let your friends know about the podcast. Some Tarantino heads. Have them listen to the podcast. Go to the New Beverly Theater if you're in LA. Film projection. It's been remodeled. I can't quite tell what the difference is. If anyone could tell me, that'd be great. And as Sven always, thank you to Curtis for the music. And as Sven always says,
before I say it, I also just want to say thanks again, Mael, for reaching out to me directly. So if you're a listener and you have something to say about this, don't hesitate to get in touch with us. And happy editing.
It's iPhones and TV shows about tweakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers. There's no sane zone, so put your head between the speakers.
Yeah, sorry, I knew you had something to say. I just was kind of, I was like, I don't know what my plan was, but it worked out.
Cool.
Are we all good?
I think we're all good. I mean, I like it. I think we're good.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wouldn't say we nailed it, but I think we did good. I'm turning off